Hi guys, I thought I'd make a video of one of these first assignments that we're working on. I know a lot of you might be new to GitHub repositories, so I thought I'd walk you through what we're looking at right here. So here is the description for this assignment, and this is in my GitHub repository. You can tell that by looking over here at my username. If on your own account, you should see your initials there. Sometimes, usually when I'm already logged into GitHub, it's going to come up looking like this, and I will click on my repositories tab right there in the middle, and I will see my different repositories, and I have a lot because I've made quite a few assignments. If you happen to go to GitHub without all of your stuff in there, if you're not logged in, it may ask you to log in. In this case, I am logged in, and so it shows this window, and usually I've just gone to a more familiar area by clicking on one of these repositories on this side and then clicking on my username and going to repositories, and you can find what you're looking for. If you type a little bit of text, if you know some of what your repository is named, then I think most of my exercises I started with that. You can do a little search and then click on what you're looking for. So I already have that one open. The first step, okay, well, to talk to you guys a little bit about what you're looking at here, these are the files in the repository, and we're going to talk a little bit more about what some of these files are in our class materials, but this CSV, this .sav, and this .xlsx file, these are different formats you might see when working with data for statistics. CSV stands for comma separated values. SAV is a data format for statistical program called Spss, and xlsx is an Excel worksheet or workbook, and these all have the exact same data in them. You can, if it's a text format, you can actually see it directly in GitHub. If I open that up, and you'll see that GitHub understands the CSV format and it's displaying this as tabular data. You can actually look at the raw code for this file. If you click on raw, then you'll see that's what's in there. It just has these variable names at the top. That's the header row, and then you'll have rows with data, and the data values are separated by commas, and you'll see these go in the same order as these header row. And you can actually just save this directly to your computer by hitting save as, and it would download that file directly there, but we're not going to bother doing that. But I just wanted you to see that you can actually see that. You can actually edit that directly in GitHub by clicking on it and hitting the little edit file, and you'll see it has here, and I could go in there and make changes, which I'm not going to do right now. But there's our files up there. To round out a little explanation of the files we have in here, this one at the top is the answer sheet. You don't really have to answer anything on it turned in, but I did give it to you for your convenience. You can keep some notes on it because you will answer questions about the assignment in Canvas when you get done. So it might be a good place to keep some notes so you have them handy. The .rtf at the end of that stands for rich text format. It's another text format, but it allows for some additional formatting. It's pretty generic. I think Mac people may not have seen this very often, but your whatever text editor you have on your Mac should open that file up, something like Microsoft Word or something else. .md, the .md stands for Markdown, and that is what this file is that we're reading. This is the Markdown file. Most GitHub repositories will have a default Markdown file called readme.md, and it will display the text at on that repository there. So that's something, and you can actually you say I'm logged in my account, and I could actually edit that here if I wanted to. And then this last one, .rmd, that stands for R Markdown. It's another kind of Markdown that is used by RStudio in what they call R notebooks. And a Markdown language is just kind of a shortcut formatting language. And just to see it, if I open that up, you'll see all it is a text file with, it uses some conventions. So 1 hashtag is a level 1 heading, 2 hashtags is a level 2 heading, and these little asterisks there create bullet points. So it's just a way to make a text file with some formatting on it, and I'm going to get out of that because I really don't care about editing it right now. And I closed my folder. I think we're in this one. Okay. If you want a little bit of explanation about rich text format, I did link you to a video where somebody describes a little bit more of that here in this first assignment, because I knew that's new. That format is new to some of you. But I just want to make sure I use something very generic, which any text editor could open, and that's one that they can. So the steps you're going to complete here is you're going to fork this repository, and forking is creating a copy of the repository on your own GitHub account. So like I said, this is on my account. If you go over here at the top right corner and click on this fork button, it will create a copy on your own GitHub account, and I think it should probably take you there. I'm not going to click it because once you're in your own account, you can't fork your own repository. Also, if you try to fork this multiple times, it'll work the first time, and then additional times it should give you a message saying you already forked the repository, so you need to go to your own account. But that's how you're going to do that. I made another video about cloning, so I'm not going to go into that. It's one way of using Visual Studio Code to create a copy of this repository on GitHub on your own computer. I'm just going to use kind of a shortcut method and download these files directly. So to download this set of files to my computer so I can work on this assignment, I'm going to go to the code button and click download zip. And you'll see that this file downloaded, and I'm going to go ahead and open this zip up, and you'll see that in Windows this comes up. This is a zip file. It's a zip archive. It's a compressed archive. It's a way to exchange files and not have it be so big. And in Windows, I get this option to extract all. I'm going to pick that, and most of the time in Windows, you're going to have this option. It's usually checked by default. It says show extracted files when complete. That's what I want to work on, is the extracted files, so I'm going to leave that checked. If it's not checked on your machine, you might want to check it. And I kind of believe a Mac may extract this for you, but you'll need to double check. And if you have questions, you can come to office hours and we can work on it together. And I'm going to hit extract. And now here is my extracted folder. And if I click on that folder, you'll notice that I'm going to close the zip archive. And you'll notice that the files in this folder match the files in my GitHub repository. So I have successfully downloaded this repository file, these repository files to my computer, and extracted them so I can work on this now. So all of these assignments are going to have an answer sheet, and you want to go ahead and open this up. I'm going to open this up with kind of a Word program. I don't have Word installed on this computer, so I'm just going to use kind of a generic one. And all the answer sheets should look similar to this. I had some older versions. If you go look at the older versions, the content is pretty much the same, but you'll notice that I actually had formatted it in more of a horizontal format with instructions and answers side by side. And I think I've decided that I kind of like this vertical format a little better. But you can go look at the old one if you want to in the old folder. But this content is pretty much the same. I might have tweaked it a little bit for the newer version. So you just want to open these instructions up and follow it through. And you'll see I I left a command to install R on your computer. You're going to need that, so hopefully you already have done that step, but if you haven't, you're going to need to go install R before you can complete this assignment. You're going to want to install RStudio on your computer. Hopefully that's already done also, but if not, you're going to have to complete that before you can complete this assignment. And then we're going to go to the folder where we downloaded our files. We're going to click on the one that says RMD file. So I'm going to open this folder back up, and the one that says week 1 assignment.rmd. Let's try clicking on that. And I want to open that with RStudio. And click OK. Okay, so this is kind of a default installation of RStudio. I'm going to make this a little bit bigger so we can look at it a little bit better. And you'll see it has these 4 panes here. And at the top left, this is usually where you're going to have an R notebook, or you can open up with just a generic R file. You can open other things by going to the File menu, File, and Open, and it will give you some things to option. You can create some new things like an R notebook or R markdown or things like that. We really aren't going to do a lot with doing many files that way. So pretty much if you go to your folder and click on the R markdown file, it should open up in RStudio kind of like this, and that's how we're going to use this all semester long. So I'm not going to show you a lot of the other options. You'll see that we have a console down here. You can actually type an R code down here in the console, and it will execute it. So when you run code in here, we're going to get to that in a couple seconds, then you'll see it execute down here in the console. In the bottom right hand side, you have several tabs you can look at. Right now this should come up with the Files tab, and you'll notice that these files are the same files that are in our folder. So one of the advantages of clicking on this RMD file to open it in RStudio is it kind of sets the working directory to this folder that we're at, and that's where we want to do everything. So that's how I'd recommend you open it for this class, and just make it easy for yourself. And we're going to see what happens up here in the Environment tab. Not much is going on because we haven't done anything yet. So just by way of some explanation, this is what's called an R notebook, and it's written in what's called R markdown. You'll see this formatting is very similar. We'll see how this actually is going to make a formatted document for us at the end, but right now it's just text, and it has this little header. I believe this is actually something they called YAML, Y-A-M-L. I don't do a lot with that, so I'm not very familiar with it, but I think it's a way to have some consistent formatting for instructions. I think for instructions, I believe that this is something that our notebooks kind of use to know how to process things. In this case, I gave this document a title, and the output, I'm going to do a markdown document, and I'm actually doing this for a GitHub repository. So that's the code needed to make this, so it's going to be a markdown document that will display on GitHub, and we'll see at the end how that works. So you're going to want to go through this assignment and read through the parts. I've put some information for you to learn there. I'm just going to kind of skim through this, so go ahead and pause and read each section as we go through. And you want to complete each step below. So packages are something that we use in R. I'm just going to give you kind of a brief explanation. R is built to be modular, and what that means is rather than make a huge program which takes a lot of space to download, when you don't need every bell and whistle available, you just need the basics, and then you can add in what you want. They've made it modular, and they do that by having a basic package which we downloaded and installed when we downloaded and installed R, And then you can have packages which add some extra functionality. And we're going to use these packages a lot this semester. Tidyverse is a set of packages for doing data formatting and manipulation in R. They're kind of new, and they're definitely, if you're going to spend time in R, you want to kind of learn the Tidyverse way to do things. Rio is a package I like for getting data in and out of R. It stands for R input output, I think, and we're going to use that to open our files. And JMV is the package written by the Jamovi creators. It's an R package which has all their commands, so you actually can run the same analyses in RStudio using the JMV package, and it will be formatted pretty much the same way it will be in Jamovi. So we're going to get into the next part. So this just makes a variable called packages, and it creates a list of them that is going to have it. And we're going to run these code blocks by clicking on the little play button. Looks like a green triangle pointed to the right, and I'm going to run that. And when that ran, you'll see that you may have seen the little green bar that went down the side here as it executed the things. Down here in the console, you'll see that this command was run. And now in our environment variable, you see we have a variable called packages, and it has 3 items listed. So it successfully executed that command. This is a way that I like to kind of manage the packages that I'm in. When I have packages I want to use in R, I actually have to make sure they're installed on my machine. So this little bit of code, this for loop, it loops through our list, and it's checking each of these to see if it's installed. And if it's not installed, it's going to go through and install it. And sometimes they make packages that need other packages. Those are called dependencies. And I've set this to go ahead and install all the dependencies at the same time. And then when it's done with that step, it's going to print the name of the package that it went through. So when I run this the first time, this will actually take several minutes because there's usually a lot of packages that need to be installed up front. It won't be like that every time you use these R notebooks because you already have them installed, so it won't have to go through that step. But I'm going to go ahead and get this started, and we'll see what this looks like. And what's this? Okay, I don't know if that really worked the way I wanted it to, so I'm going to run it one more time. Okay, so it looks like I'm having issues with my Windows firewall, and I'm going to go troubleshoot that and come back because it's saying my my folder's not writable. So I'm going to go see how to fix that. I'll be back. Okay, so I think I figured out what was going on. This Windows has gotten a little more strict, at least on my current machine, and about what it will let things write to folders and what it won't. So I actually had to shut down RStudio, and I went and reopened it, and I ran it as administrator. And the way you do that is you right click on something. So in this case, if I open this up and I had RStudio and I right clicked on it and go to more, run as administrator. And what that does is it gives that program more permissions to be able to write things on your computer, which is what I did. But the downside of that is it wasn't automatically set to work in the directory I wanted to. So what I had to do was go to session and set working directory. And while these are installing, it's not going to let me show you. So after this is done, I will show you how I set the working directory. But you'll see that I'm running this part with all the packages. It's doing a lot of installing here. You'll see that this code block is running. This play button is turned to a red stop button. I can actually interrupt it, but I don't want to, so don't click that. And you'll see the green bar is down the side. That indicates that this block is currently executing. And you can see stuff updates here as it goes. So this can take several minutes depending on how fast your computer is, how fast your internet connection is, because it's actually downloading packages from the internet. So I'm just going to pause the video again and let this run, and I will come back when it's done doing the install. Okay, so the installation is complete. The part I was telling you about to set the working directory in case you need to run your program as administrator like I did. You can open it up as administrator like I already showed you, and then go to session and set working directory and choose directory, and that will let you navigate to your folder, and you want to go pick the folder that you're working in and hit open, and then it will show this. So that's the directory we're working in. Now that I installed these packages, I'm going to go ahead and just run this one more time, and the second time it won't install anything new, and it's just going to print out the name of these variables. So you'll see that if you look at my console, I mean, a lot of stuff ran. There's a lot going on. It's a lot of text. It can be a little scary, but just let it run, let it take its time and do its thing. And if I run that again, you'll see that it didn't install anything new, and it printed each of my packages, so they are installed. So we've got that first step done. In R, whenever you install a package, you actually need to load the package into memory to use it, and that's done using the library command. So I'm going to run this next block, which loops through my packages list again and runs the library command for each of my packages, and then it's going to print it out when it's done. So if I run that, you'll see that it installed, here's my packages. And you'll see there are some notifications here. Nothing errored, but we do have an issue, and I do describe what this is here about working with packages and masking. So go ahead and read through those instructions to understand a little bit better about what that is. But the short version is some packages use the same function names, and that can interfere with each other. So when I write R code, you'll notice that I use this notation where I have the package name, colon, colon, and then the function name, and that way I know I want the function out of the specific package. And if you start working with R code more, I would recommend you use that same notation. As you notice, we're using 3 packages here, and there's some conflicts. And the more packages you use, the harder it is to remember which package your function comes from. So while you're writing it, I would just use that notation, and that will keep things very explicit, and you won't have these conflicts that may come up. So the purpose of this assignment is to get you used to opening data files, and I wanted you to see that in RStudio you can actually use all the data files that we have, and there's others you can use. We're only looking at 3 today. So we're going to open a CSV data file, which is a comma separated value data file, and this is using a command called the file choose command. What this does is it doesn't specify what the file is, and it opens up a dialog box for you to go choose. So I'm going to go ahead and run this, and on my other window, I have several monitors here. It gave me this dialog box, and it's in our working directory, and I want the one that says CSV. I always, on my computer, set it to show the file extensions. If you don't set that on your Windows machine, it probably defaults to not showing you these things, so all you're going to see is this week 1, week 1, week 1. But if you look over here in the file type column, it tells you what it is, and Windows kind of automatically thinks a comma separated value file goes with Excel, so that's why it says that there. And you'll see, but one says comma separated values and one says Excel worksheet. So we're working on the comma separated values file, so we're going to go ahead and select that and click open. And now you'll notice that I have a new variable here that's under data, and it says I have 10 observations of 4 variables, and I can actually look at the data by clicking on the name of the variable there, and you'll see over here it opens up a new tab, and I can see the name of the variables, and I can see the data that are in each variable, and if this is long, it can get long and wide, so depends on how much data you have in there. So that successfully opened our CSV file and loaded it into a data frame so that we could actually work with that data. But we're not going to do anything extra, we're just opening files today. So we're going to try the same thing with an Excel workbook. Again, this is using the Rio package and the import command, and then file choose to let me choose the file. And I'm going to run this code block, and you'll notice that my pop-up did not seem to appear. Sometimes it hides behind the main window. So I'm glad that happened so I could show that to you. So don't be confused. This is not a perfect program, and this little glitch can happen where it hides behind, so you might need to move your main window so you can see the pop-up. And again, we're looking at the Excel workbook, so I'm going to go down and click here on the Excel worksheet and click open. And you'll notice that I'd used a different variable name here, XLS dataset, and there it is in my data section. And if I click on that, it's actually the exact same data, but it's in 2 variables. So right now I've got 2 data sets open that I could work with. And last of all, we're going to open the SPSS data file format, and again, the same Rio package with the same command. Let us choose, and it can work with SPSS files too. So I'm going to run that code block, and my window hit again, and I'm going to go choose the SAV file and open that one. And you'll notice that down here in the terminal, my command ran, and if I go up here and look at the saved data set, you'll see that those data are the same. Those are similar. So anybody that's used SPSS realizes that when you code a categorical variable, that you use number codes and then you just put text labels on it. So you'll notice this actually came through with the SPSS format of the ordinal variables using number codes. So that's a little bit different. It was not a big deal. If you use SPSS, you know what that is. We will do a little bit more, talking a little bit more about some of these issues later on. Mostly today I just want you to realize that you can open different types of data sets in R. So this next section, I did want to teach you that R comes with some data sets already loaded in it. So if you want to try things out, you can just use those. You don't have to go find a different data set. And the cars data set is one of those data sets. So we're going to do a plot and using cars. And so this one, actually, if I run it, you'll see here's my plot. And here is the variables on that plot, the speed and the dist variable. That is one of your assignment questions. What are the variables in the cars data set? You want to make sure you use the same spelling and capitalization to name those variables when you answer those questions. And you can add your own code blocks. And Last year when I wrote this assignment, there was actually a section up here that said insert chunk, and they changed that in the last year. So I'm going to actually just go down here, and that is up here with this little green C window. It must stand for chunk, I guess. And if you click on there, you can do different kinds of chunks, but we're going to be working with R this semester, so you just need to click on the top one for R. And you'll see now there's a new code chunk. And you can actually, I think there's a keyboard shortcut. I'll just show that to you. Control Alt I. So I do Control Alt I. You'll see it puts one in. And I don't even have to do that. I can actually manually create a code chunk. And those are backtick characters. It's up there above the tab key. And it's 3 backtick characters, a curly brace, an R, and then we've got our last curly brace, and we'll leave a space, and then you end it with 3 backtick characters. That is the code block. So you can either use the icon, you can use the keyboard shortcut, or you can use just type it in and create an R code block, and then you can write something to execute, and that's a print command in R. And if I run that, oops, you'll see that could not find function pring, and that's because there is no function pring. The function is print. So error messages are your friend when you do something wrong. I think in the instruction sheet, well, let's take a peek at it. I told you to use a command called view cars. So I'm going to go ahead and go back to RStudio, and let's try that in one of these other ones. It's capital VIEW, and view cars, and I'm going to run that, and you'll see I have my cars data set with my 2 variables, speed and dist, and those numbers in there. So very handy to be able to put your R code in here. And the nice part about using an R notebook like this is you have a great record of, you can keep notes about what you're doing, and you have all your code in case you need to look at this later or do something with it later. And last thing we're going to do is we're going to save the output. So these R markdown files, these R notebooks, can be used to create some formatted output. And the way that we're going to do that is we're going to do what they call knitting. And there's a little icon that looks like a ball of yarn with a knitting needle, and it says knit, and we're going to go to the knit option and knit to markdown document. And this first time you run it, it says it requires an updated package, and we're just going to say, do you want to install it? We're going to click yes. And again, this can take a little bit of time to run, and you just want to let it sit and do its thing. Okay, so you'll see I got this pop-up, and this has some of my text and code in it, and there is some output underneath some of the sections where I ran things, and so this is, it's still marked down, it's not totally displayed yet, but it's the file that we needed. And let's see if it saved a version in my RStudio. Oh, it's not letting me see my file. I can just double check in my folder, and let's go to, I think this was in my downloads and stats. Okay, you'll see it did save a version of this in my week 1 assignment markdown. But if it hadn't, I can go to the Save As button, and it should give me a dialog box to save it. But I know it's already there, so I'm going to go ahead and close this pop-up window. And this might have been, oh, I wish I were seeing it there. Oh, that was a little strange. Session, set working directory, choose directory, and downloads. I thought I was in that one. Okay, there it is. So I don't know why that was a little hard to see, but I don't think it refreshed the file menu. Okay, so that's what we're going to turn in for our assignment. So that's all we're going to do in RStudio. We can go look at our instruction sheet and what are the variables in the cars data set. We did look at that. We knew it was speed and dist, and you'll see that this Word document changed the formatting. You definitely need to have the correct capitalization and spelling to get the right answers on the questions. So we also completed the next step. We knit the document and we saved that file. And now we're going to go onto Jamovi. So if you don't have Jamovi installed, you want to install it. And we're going to go do this next part in Jamovi. So I'm going to close RStudio. And I'm not going to save the workspace. I don't care about that. I already saved the file I cared about. And I'm going to go to this and go open up Jamovi. And that's opening. And I want to add our data sets to Jamovi. So if I go over to the right hand side, this big plus sign for modules, and go to Jamovi library, I'm looking for our data sets. These are not in alphabetical order. So you kind of have to scroll down, and here's our data sets and install. And now I want to, I can get out of the modules, and I want to open the cars data set here in Jamovi, and you can do that by going to the file menu. It looks like these three little lines, and we're going to go to open, and now you're going to click on data library, and this is the R data sets. Whoops. Looks like I clicked on one and I didn't want to do that yet. And let's go to that and open and data library, and we're in our data sets and we're looking for cars. And there it is. Looks like we just need a single click. Okay, so there's Jamovi cars, and there's our variables, and it's asking us how to set the level of measurement. And if you remember from class, we have 4 levels of measurement: nominal, ordinal, interval, or ratio. And nominal is groups without order, ordinal is groups with order, interval is equidistant measurement points, and ratio is equidistant measurement points with a meaningful 0 point. And looking at speed, and this is probably distance, we know that when we see the number 0, that means 0. So I'm going to double click on the column name, and you'll see it lets me see a thing here, but it's set for nominal. And we're going to switch this to continuous. Interval and ratio level of measurement are continuous variables, and they both behave the same in statistical tests, so they only call it continuous instead of making you choose which specifically you're using. But for our purposes in class, these would definitely be ratio level of measurement. And we can either click on the next column heading, or we can hit the little next button here on the window, and that takes us over to distance. And again, we need to set that measurement type to the correct level of measurement, because that will let us do the things that we need to do. And that's good on that. I think the last thing I will show you, we're not going to do any extra analysis on this week, but if we did, then you'll probably want to save your output. And so I'm just going to click on data, or I'm going to click on analysis, exploration, and descriptives, and I get this window in here. And I'm going to save 2 things from this. I'm going to save the data set, and Jamovi is nice because it saves our data set and our output as a Jamovi file. And I'm going to export this as a PDF. So I'm going to go to the File menu to Save As, and we're going to go find our folder that we're going to save in. Again, we're in the Downloads. I think I'm in this first stats folder on mine, and I'm going to save the cars OMV file and hit Save. And I also want to export this output, so I'm going to right click on it, and you'll see I can either pick a specific analysis or all. I'm going to pick all for the output and go to Export, and I'm going to navigate again to my folder, and I'm going to hit Save. We'll call this week 1 output, and hit Save. Now if I go back to my folder, I should have all of my files that I saved in there. So there's my week 1 output folder, PDF, my output file. There is my week 1 markdown document that we made, and there's my new Jamovi file. We want to go add these to our repository in GitHub. So I'm going to go back to GitHub, and now I'm going to click on Add File and Upload Files. And you can either choose your file and use the file navigator to go choose them, or sometimes it's a little easier just to open the folder with them, and you can drag them one at a time into your repository. And there's our markdown file. So you'll see here's my 3 files that have uploaded, and then I'm going to go to Commit Changes and click on the green Commit Changes button, and your files will be uploaded. I'm actually going to cancel that because I don't want to put the finished assignment files in this repository, because that's what you guys will be using. But you're going to hit the green button, and then you're going to go copy the URL for your GitHub repository and go submit that for your assignment in Canvas. So I hope this helps with this first assignment. Basically, download the files either through zip or using VS Code, whichever you choose to do, and open up the instructions sheets and follow through the instructions and complete all the steps. If you run into problems, come to office hours or post questions on the discussion, and we'll try and get you straightened out. And I know it's a lot this first week, but we will learn this process and it will get pretty easy. I hope you have a good day, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.